Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mondays with Meg. And I could not be more thrilled to be having this specific conversation this morning with my dear friend, Brandi. And if you have not met Brandi, you're going to be so glad you have today because she actually has this incredible website, Human Amplified, that you need to go to right now. The link is right up here with the video. So absolutely, you can go be perusing while we're having our conversation this morning. But Brandi, thank you so much for joining me.
Gosh, thank you so much for having me, Meg. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, well, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what Human Amplified is all about before we dive into our conversation?
Sure. Well, in a nutshell, it's really about human nature and making change in the world. And so we're on a mission to revamp society by amplifying your humanity. And so it's a podcast. Excuse me, it's a podcast, it's a blog, it's growing into an educational resource, and it really is a platform for people to use their voice to be seen and heard. So it's really fun. I'm enjoying it.
Well, good. And you're also an artist. So that's a whole
Yes.
other aspect of it as well that I just love so much. Now, I feel like I need to let you all in on a little secret. My humanity is absolutely going to be amplified tomorrow on the podcast, actually, and you are not going to want to miss that conversation. We got like super deep, super real, and anyway, you're absolutely going to want to check it out. We'll be posting it all the places tomorrow. But actually, Brandi and I met several years ago when a mutual friend introduced us. And my husband, Craig, and I were actually on her podcast back then talking some really juicy stuff about being intentional about connecting with your partner. And man, it was a doozy. That was a good one.
In relationships, yes.
Yes, more human amplification happening there for sure. So I could not think of a better person to have this conversation with all of us this morning. So Brandi, to get us started, I would just love to ask you, what are some different things that actually cause grief? Like, what are some examples? Because I think a lot of times we think of grief as just being like death. And that isn't really the case. So what do you think about that? What are some other things that cause grief?
Oh my gosh, there are so many things. I mean, because grief comes with change, because it comes with loss.
Yes.
So it's divorce, it's maybe losing a friendship, it's maybe not even that you lost a friendship or that you lost a job, but that you've lost the situation you had in that job, or the dynamics changed. It's really any kind of change that causes loss, I think.
Absolutely. And, I think a lot of times too, like we think of grief as being like a super negative, like it always happens when negative things happen. But that isn't the case either. Sometimes a change is good, right?
Yes.
But we still have to grieve the change.
Right.
I don't know. Can you even tell me about a time that you could think of in your life where maybe that happened for you, whether it was like a good change, but it was also something where you had to kind of grieve through it?
Absolutely. Well, for example, I went full time on Human Amplified in June of 2020. And while I chose to do that, and I love Human Amplified, I left a job that I loved too. And so I had made that choice to sort of have that loss in one area to get a gain in another area, but I still had to grieve it. I still had to, I missed the people I worked with. I missed, being really sure and confident about things I had done for so many years. And here I am embarking into this new adventure, and it was exciting, but I still had to grieve that loss.
Absolutely. And, I think that's something people just don't talk about a lot. is that really good things can also cause you to grieve. And those of you who are watching with us this morning, I would love it if you could actually put a comment in the chat and let us know if that's something even that, that you've been going through lately. I know a lot of the grief that I've even been dealing with my coaching clients, whether it's a personal client or a business coaching client, is just the fact that this past year has literally been transition after transition, after change, right? They're the same. So it's like we've been in this constant state of grief, really.
Yes.
And I think, dealing with that is hard. I know I've been struggling with it myself. So, so really my question for you, Brandi, is like, so the fact that all of us have been feeling grief on so many different levels over and over again, especially over this past year, like, how do we know when we're grieving? Because I feel like sometimes we might not know until it hits us like a ton of bricks and then we're like down for the count. So how do we know?
Yeah. So I like to use physical sort of things, physical signs that alert me to the fact. Because sometimes when you feel an emotion, you don't immediately know what it is, like you said. And so you have to sort of think about it. I'm like, am I actually sad? Am I happy? Oh, wait, this is grief. And one of the ways I know that is I cry a lot, but it's like it's a purging cry when you're grieving. It's different than if you're happy or if you're just sad or mad. And then for me specifically, I get like a knot in my stomach and sometimes in my throat that's not present with any other kind of emotion. So definitely there are physical things that go along with it, I think.
For sure. And, I think that's really important to note. And I loved what you said about a purging cry, because that's exactly what it feels like. And I know in times when I have been going through grief, I might even like wail to like be super real with y'all. And I hope I'm not alone in this. And if I am, whatever, but I don't think I am. Like I can think of in my head times when I've really been grieving where literally I might even wail. And I'm saying I've done this like several times in the past year, not gonna lie. But I feel so much better afterwards. So I do feel like that is a very purging situation for sure. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Please tell me I'm not alone, you guys. Come on now.
Not alone. Oh my gosh. I like scream sometimes when like if I'm grieving really bad, it gets loud.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm totally with you. And, but if that isn't what it's been like for you, I feel like it's important to note, and I know you're going to be on my team with this, Brandi, like it's okay because grieving does look different for everyone.
Exactly.
So if you're not a wailer like some of us, then, that's okay too. I do know that like for me, when I try to just stuff it down, when I try to just be like, like, no, Meg, just keep going or whatever, like it gets even worse. So I don't know if you have any advice about that, Brandi, of like, if you feel like you just keep having to keep going and not give yourself the time and space and whale time or whatever to grieve, like, do you have any advice for that?
Well, I think that if something's wrong and you're not sure what's going on, and you have to keep like charging through, but something is wrong. It is so imperative to, whether it's schedule in the time, take a moment, like even if you're at work and you need to go into the bathroom and just take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to think about what's happening, recognizing that you're grieving is really important, so that you can start processing it. So the recognizing it is a thing. And then I guess processing it and doing what you have to do to process it. So even if you have to go to work or take care of your family, I think that once you know you're grieving, you can start scheduling in time to balance out what you need. You definitely have to prioritize what you need. Did that answer your
Oh,
question?
yes. Oh, you're preaching my language here. I love it. So
Okay.
good. And I love Emily actually made a comment here that I love about how, grief comes with change, like what we were talking about. But I love what she said here, that it's anything that is rocking our normalcy.
Oh, yeah.
And you nailed it, Emily. Good job with that. Absolutely. Anything that is rocking your normalcy will could be a catalyst for grief, for sure, because that is change. So piggybacking on what you were just talking about, Brandi, I think it's important to understand that sometimes people around us are not necessarily the most supportive or understanding when we are grieving.
Mhm.
So I just wonder if there's any like tips that you might have for those of us that might be, going through that right now, but might be struggling, with people around us supporting us in that area.
Oh, yeah. Well, the most important thing that I've learned, especially, is that it's not about you. If they have a
Yeah.
problem with how you're grieving or don't understand it, there's nothing wrong with you. It's they're having a trouble empathizing with your experience because they can't get past their own perception and their own experience of grief. So you can still love them and don't let that become
Yeah.
part of your grief.
Good. Perfect. And I think that's a really good way to put it, to where, that might be just their version of dealing with even the same situation, or just dealing with you hurting. They just might not, be able to do that on whatever level you're doing that at. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not you. Yeah, absolutely. So I will tell you all, Brandi and I actually worked together to create a free document that you can download. If you hit the blog post link on this video, you can actually download a cheat sheet that we made for you with some really great information and tips, a cheat sheet, if you will, for how to grow through your grief. And I will tell you, I think it's really helpful. I really sat with it for a while, and I know you did the same thing, Brandi. And from the bottom of our hearts, we just really hope that this is helpful for you, or maybe someone you love going through any sort of grief, whether it's happy grief or a harder grief than that, through this time. So I really hope that you'll take a minute, go on over to the blog and check out that blog post. There's a lot of other great information on there too, and download that free cheat sheet that we made for you. Now, Brandi,
Mhm.
you and I have this date tomorrow for my podcast episode. How would you like to set that up for everyone to take a listen tomorrow?
Sure. Well, I think it's sort of a precursor to grief because we talk a lot about
Oh my gosh.
transition and the emotional baggage that comes and how you can nurture yourself and people through that emotional baggage when you're not processing everything. So I think that it is fun, and you get to learn a lot about Meg and her life, and it is amazing, and it's sort of a little roller coaster we go on. So I think you should
Yeah,
check it out.
I know. I can't wait to hear like
Yeah.
how it turned out. But for real, guys, you're gonna know me extremely intimately after if it wasn't like, if you didn't already know me intimately from the last podcast episode I did with Brandi, with my husband, this one is absolutely very real and raw, and I hope it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I will say Meg gives so many tips. I mean, just like one after another, things that you can apply to your life immediately. So that was really cool.
Good. Well, I can't wait.
Yeah.
And I hope that you all will join us for that ride, as it's going to hit the sound waves tomorrow. In the meantime, absolutely head on over to Human Amplified. Check out everything that Brandi has over there. She is a wealth of knowledge and has an amazing library of podcast episodes that you are not going to want to miss. So Brandi, thank you for joining me this morning. We hope that this has been a helpful conversation for all of you. And be sure to share this with anyone that you think might really need some further support with growing through grief right now.